Welcome to the Media Nerds Podcast. I'm Dan Vadebonker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
And I have to tell you, Kenton, I've seen so much content from your students this week between the product promotions or whatever it is you get them to do on Instagram, and then the selfies from McNally Robinson yesterday. What happened? What happened with that?
David Frum was at McNally Robinson yesterday, and he is how do I describe him for people? He is son of Barbara Frum, who is probably one of the best-known Canadian broadcast journalists ever. And he is a Republican, an anti-Trump Republican who worked as a speechwriter in George W. Bush's White House and who is now regularly appears as a pundit on CNN.
I saw him on
Bill Maher. He got into a big fight with the Mooch.
Yep. That's right.
On Bill Maher. That was really interesting. Yeah. And then the fight continued onto Twitter the next day, which was good. So he was coming, it was kind of a surprise that he was just showing up at McNally. And as it turns out, they probably shouldn't have had it there. They probably should have moved it into a movie theater down the mall.
Oh, really?
It was there. I don't know, 500 people. It was packed, and the staff at McNally had enough. They'd had enough. They were by the time I got there 15 minutes early, and they'd had enough. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
So, everybody got the same bright idea. We'll go up the stairs into the kids department to see him, so we can look down and see him from up there. And so we all start going up, and there's a woman standing there. She's like, "No, you can't stand here. It's a fire hazard." And I said, "Is it because I'm covered in lighter fluid?" I said as a joke, and she was like, "Nope, not funny." And so everybody turns around, and you just saw everybody. So there was nowhere to go. He came walking in and walked right past me. So I saw him up close. And I was like, if he makes eye contact, I'm going to say, "Hello, how are you?" I was going to say hi. Did not make eye contact. He didn't look at anyway. He had the I'm looking down to get into this bookstore. Mm-hmm. So they got him in, and they carted him out, and they had it being coming through the loudspeaker system, the PA there, so you could hear what he was saying. And at the same time, they had Mercer, party of two, your table's ready, through the same system. Okay, so that was good. And then he made one joke about it, but then it was like, why are we still hearing that? So later on, they just kept doing it.
Oh, my goodness.
Over the speaker, so that was bad. So tons of students were there, too. And I think that's when it was good for one reason. I said he was famous, and it turns out, yes, he is. You were
validated by the people that showed up there.
He drew a big crowd, but then the students were kind of like, "Oh, this is pointless," and it was hard to disagree. It was pretty ridiculous.
I made a joke in class because I started seeing the selfies pop up on Twitter, and I said, it might have been more valuable for you guys to take a photo of him than to take a photo of yourself, because we want to see that you were next to him, but they're like, we couldn't get close enough to get a picture of him. That they told me.
Well, I ended up taking one of him signing books.
You got a book signed?
Yes, but I'll tell you what I did. Did I stand in a line to get it? No.
Okay.
I noticed, actually, I took advantage of some confusion because I noticed there were some books sitting next to him on the table, and the people were kind of confused when he first sat down, and I walked by and I lifted one, and I opened it up, and it had been pre-signed. So I was like, I'll take one of these pre-signed ones. And so everybody else was waited in a line out into the mall.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so I kind of skipped the line. I don't know. Maybe I was allowed to do that. I don't even know. But so I kind of got the hell out, and I listened to him being interviewed. There was a Q&A. Somebody said, why don't you just convert to be a Democrat already? And everybody applauded and laughed, and he said, nah. So that was good. And I don't know, it was just interesting to hear him, but it would have been better to be closer.
For sure.
I couldn't even look. There was really nowhere to go. You couldn't even stand in the aisles. They freaked out. No, that's a hazard if somebody stands there. I just kept thinking there's a movie theater 2 doors down, and they're not running movies till tonight. So you could have just put them in a theater.
Yeah, I guess that. I'm sure that didn't occur to McNally because they want people in there to buy books, right? So they're not going to.
Right,
that's true. They're not going to complain about. Well, I guess they were complaining about people being there, but they probably didn't expect that type of a crowd. You know what I mean? So you're saying they should have all of a sudden changed it and said, "Okay, guys, let's go to the movie theater," and brought everybody down there.
Potentially, if I would have been working there, it would have crossed my mind at the very least. I might have run down there and just said, "Hey, we'll pay you a theater rental. We'll give you something when it's all done here." Because it would have been easy to just march them back. Everybody was buying a book.
Right.
There wasn't like they were going to leave there without one.
Yeah.
But it was just or I even thought in the middle of the mall you could have put them. It wouldn't have been that hard. People could have stood.
Okay,
There's probably
good to know.
There's probably a microphone.
Oh,
thing
sure. I'm sure
somewhere.
they have a system. Yeah, they could have thrown that together pretty quickly.
So, but then I asked at the desk, who is this the most packed it's ever been? And I'd actually been there for David Sedaris, and it was about the same.
Okay.
There was like lots of people. The woman working there said Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, is probably the king of drawing the crowd out of everybody. So it was interesting. It was kind of neat seeing all those people, but ultimately it would have been probably a better experience if they or even brought him here to Red River College to the lecture theater or something. It would have been better. But yeah, they were tweeting me selfies for their 1% bonus, and then I was watching. You know what was funny? The students who wanted to go was funny because like a couple people were like sort of made a halfway break to the door, and then they saw me standing there and they were like, "Oh, look at this book I just happened to see." It was funny because as the teacher, you're just standing there watching it all played out. And so I took one picture of a group bolting because they just looked so sure like they'd gotten away with it. I was like, "Oh, I can't let this go."
And
okay,
I'm not gonna get.
So I tweeted it. So I tweeted and I went
funny.
busted. And then I pretended to be stealing a book, and I had one of our students tweet busted for me too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
you were having fun.
We were kind of clowning around. But
you also
and there's some former some Crecom grads there.
Oh, good.
And there's a couple people from the communications business I hadn't seen in a long time who had some of my former colleagues from creative communications. So it was well attended. It was bursting at the seams. I bought the book. I haven't read a single page yet.
I was just going to ask you that. Okay.
But I will. I'll be reading it over reading week.
There you go.
Figure. I'll be the one guy reading something.
Yeah, no kidding.
Over reading.
Because our students apparently are loaded down with homework.
They're loaded with homework.
This is what they tell me. Okay, well, that's awesome. I'm sorry I missed it. I had a class. I couldn't make it, but I would have absolutely gone down there.
Did they make it to your class?
No, they were about 5 or 10 minutes late, so that's fine.
Horrible.
That's fine.
Horrible. And you deducted the appropriate marks.
I did. Of course I did. Yes.
Very good.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
So it cancels out that 1% bonus mark that they got for going completely.
I'm just imagining our students watching us on Shaw, and that's why I want them to see, we all deducted marks.
That's right. It was a trick.
I want them to see this on reading week when they're not at school.
There you go. Okay, let's get into the nerd news.
All right.
Nerd News is sponsored by FanQuest, a fan convention happening June 23rd and 24th. Go to fanquestcon.com for more information. First up, this is I don't know how much of a news story this is, but I thought it was hilarious. I think it's fair to say that we haven't been overly kind to Jimmy Fallon on this podcast when we talk about late night.
He's not my favorite.
No, he's not. And he's not... He certainly lost a bit of steam when with the kind of resurgence of Colbert and Colbert really getting into the groove on his show and taking a definitely anti-Trump stance. And Fallon doesn't do that. Fallon is like friendly. He loves everybody. Everyone's his friend. He's about having fun, which is fine for a certain audience. But this week, or actually last week, he did something that grabbed my attention. I've been mildly obsessed with it all week, and that is he recreated, him and Paul Rudd have done a couple of different things that are funny together. And I'm more impressed with Paul Rudd on this than Jimmy Fallon necessarily, although the idea had to have come from Fallon's team or whatever. But what they did, do you know what they did?
No.
Okay, so what they did was they recreated a music video of the song King of Wishful Thinking by the band Go West, which you may remember from the Pretty Woman soundtrack.
Sure.
I remember loving the song as a kid. I mean, I was a 14-year-old at the time, but it was like 1990 when it came out. So I remember loving the video, or loving the music. Can't talk right now. Loving the song. I'd never seen the video. I don't ever remember seeing this video. Do you remember the video?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do remember it.
What do you remember about it?
I hope I'm thinking of the right one. Is it? Oh no, maybe I'm not.
Shot I might be thinking white background.
I think I might be thinking of the wrong band. Sorry, Go West. You said
Go West. Yes.
Okay, I think I was thinking of the Wild Wild West song from the 90s. Pardon me.
That's okay.
The band Go West.
Go West. King of Wishful Thinking. I can't sing it.
Sorry.
No?
No, I don't think so. Pardon me. That's the other one that came to mind first.
It has to be the craziest. So I watched the recreation, and they're like recreating it shot for shot. Perfect. I lined them up and I watched them side by side.
What is the video? Remind us.
Well, the video is it's on a white background, and it's basically the premise of the video is that they're shooting the video. So the beginning of it, they sit down with directors' chairs, and there's two guys in Go West, and then they pull up in a limo, and they get out of the limo and do something, and then there's another part where there's hockey players and it really is just a bunch of random things.
Okay,
it's so many different random things that are all put together in this video for no reason.
Is Go West from Britain?
Yes. Yeah,
I remember the band. I definitely do, but not the song and not the video.
Okay.
Yeah, it sort of came back to me. I remember.
Well,
did they go west? Did they reform recently?
I don't know, but they did tweet about this. They tweeted about this. They said, well, thank you for thinking of us. Okay, so the chorus of it goes, I'll get over you, I know I will. I'm the king of wishful thinking. That's the song. The video is completely random. It's all these different things thrown into one. It seems like they just like sat. They had a white room. They're like, okay, what can we do? What do we have? And they just did a bunch of random stuff. That's really what it is. And they so Fallon and Rudd recreated this shot for shot. Except for a couple of different parts. Like I compare them side by side. And actually what I was trying to do was put together an edit of both of them together so you can actually watch it. I was going to throw that up on YouTube. But they did modify it slightly because in the original video there was a zebra and an elephant. And Fallon did not go for the live animals. I don't know whether it was a budget thing or it was a cruelty to animals thing or what it was. But other than them taking out the animals, everything else is perfect. It's so funny. I shared it on Facebook. It's getting tons of shares and comments and stuff. People are loving it. And so a brief shining light from Jimmy Fallon here. And so maybe this is the kind of stuff we need from Jimmy Fallon at this time, right?
Wow.
He's not gonna challenge the presidency. He's not gonna make fun of him or anything like that. But he's gonna make things that make us laugh, and maybe that's all he wants to do.
Well, maybe, and that's an enjoyable video. But he's that's what he's sort of been doing from day one is funny videos and stuff that goes viral.
Yep.
And but you're right, he's good natured. I want to be everyone's friend guy.
Yeah.
And that's why he has fallen upon hard times.
And Paul Rudd is amazing in this. He really commits to it. Afterwards, there was an interview. The interview, actually, the reason that Paul Rudd is there promoting whatever he was promoting, he said, we were showing some outtakes of him, like how committed he was to this role, and he came at it like any other role. He was like right in there. And of course, it's Fallon who's cracking up and ruining all the takes, which is what he's doing on Saturday Night Live all the time. But it's just I'll post this to our social media if you haven't seen it yet. It's so funny, and again, it's not necessarily a news item. I just wanted to highlight it as something that really grabbed my attention this week. Speaking of YouTube, are you familiar with Casey Neistat at all? He had a show on HBO called The Neistat Brothers way back when, like 10 years ago.
No.
It was a documentary style show, and he kind of parlayed that into some fame on YouTube. So now he's a very well-known YouTuber, he's primarily known as a vlogger. He's known for his really good filmmaking approach to vlogging. It's not just him holding out a camera or a phone. He actually puts a bunch of stuff together and edits it in really cool ways.
I remember this now too. Earlier this week in class, somebody showed me one of those videos.
Was it the one where he interviewed the guy from YouTube?
I don't remember, but I remember exactly what you're saying, which is it's a high quality.
It's really good.
Yeah,
I watch him on a regular basis. But what happened this week on Monday, he posted a video of his interview with YouTube's chief business officer, Robert Kyncl.
Okay.
Kyncl. And it's what's interesting about it, and I watched the video at the time, and I thought, well, it's about what you would expect. Like the reason for the interview is because of the Logan Paul controversy,
right,
and because of all the stuff happening, of the adpocalypse happening around YouTube, where a lot of channels are getting falsely shut down because of the algorithm thinking that they're posting inappropriate content. So this whole thing. So the reason for this interview was that he wanted to get the answers right from YouTube, and it actually ended up being more of a puff piece and more of a, I don't know. He didn't really get any answers out of is the question. So he's under criticism right now because he didn't really push anything. He had some good questions. He initially started with some good questions, but then didn't. And when the guy gave him kind of a basically kind of a very rehearsed, PR style answer, he said, okay, and went on to the next question. He didn't actually follow up with anything that was a bit tough. So I want to call, this is actually a piece on Gizmodo by Brian Menegus, Menegus. That sounds like a really bad name. It could be meningitis. But anyway, there's a bunch of tweets here showing how disappointed people are in Neistat for not taking advantage of this a bit better. Some questions, for example, the closest he gets to a specific question talks about the Logan Paul video. Of course, this is the infamous video in which Logan Paul visited the Japanese forest, which is known for people committing suicide, and posted a video of what he found, a body dangling from a tree there. And this video went to the front page of YouTube for I don't know how many hours it was up there before they took it down. But it was because of all the activity around it, the shares and the comments and the views, the algorithm pushed it to the front page, and that's where it was, and there was no response from YouTube. So he was getting at that. So Neistat says, how did it land on the homepage? And so the Kinsel says, I think there are no simple answers to that, except that there was a lot of interest in that video. There were a lot of searches for it all around the world on YouTube, and it ended up there. So basically, that's the closest he ever comes to admitting that the algorithm is broken or the algorithm doesn't work the way they want it to. But there could have been,
the algorithm works.
Well, it works too well
That's
in a way, right? It
That's
works
right.
if people are looking for inappropriate content, it's going to show them inappropriate content. So some follow-up questions that he could have asked. These are some from this columnist here at Gizmodo. At what steps of that process is there human oversight? Your boss, CEO Susan Wojcicki, claimed that YouTube would employ 10,000 human moderators this year. How many currently work to review videos? That's a good question, right? How many people are involved in this actual process of approving videos? If you can't define how a video with preferred advertising that makes light of suicide ends up in the trending section of the platform, why should advertisers have any confidence in YouTube? And that's really the central issue here. So I know I'm doing a lot of talking on this. I don't know if you have anything to say about it, but I just thought it was an interesting attempt by Casey Neistat to get to the bottom of things, but he didn't actually do that.
Well, the world we live in is the algorithm world these days, and thanks to a certain election, and thanks to the more stuff like this that happens, the more we're gonna see people pushing back against it. I mean, we've had many discussions on the show about. I'm not a fan of algorithms choosing music for me. Right. For instance, I'm choosing my own. I'm choosing my own books that I want to read. I like to choose, and I like to do it. I like to get recommendations from people who I respect or people I get along with, or students, or those aren't people I get along with. Well, some of them. Okay, some of them. But I like to get recommendations from people I know, and then to seek those things out. And for music, I like reading magazines like Q and Uncut magazine, and then I seek out music based on that. But it's for people who kind of are letting the algorithms do the thinking for them, it is it's a big concern. It's a big concern because what are we missing? Exactly. As a result of not seeking out intellectual pursuits ourselves.
And from the perspective of the companies who are running these websites, they're just trying to manage the traffic. There are millions and millions of people all over the world accessing this every minute. Mm-hmm. And so they can't possibly manage all that with people. So they're the algorithm helps save them time and money, I guess, ultimately by not having to employ more people. But Facebook is facing the same issue, right? Facebook is also having issues with this algorithm in regards to advertising. So I think we're just kind of hitting this point now where we're all starting to really question the whole system. Is this the best way to access this content? Is this the best way to deliver content? And I hope that it results in change. I hope that, but this interview that Casey Neistat did doesn't indicate anything. Basically, all the guy did was take the time to assure everybody how much he cares about creators. What else is he going to say? And to say that they're looking at it, blah, blah, blah. There was no definite answers about anything. So it ultimately didn't do what he was hoping it would do. But I don't know. It's just frustrating for me.
I think the world is figuring out how PR works in an interview too.
Yeah.
I think it's become more people just didn't know before.
Well, but maybe not. I don't think Casey Neistat was aware of that guy, of using those tactics to kind of answer his questions.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a more seasoned journalist would have recognized that and asked some of the follow-up questions.
But the other thing is when you get a big interview, you get nervous too.
That's true.
And I think I heard on our pal Steele Saunders podcast today, he interviewed Entertainment Weekly's Anthony Bresnikan.
Okay.
Oh, forgive me. He's the guy who writes about Star Wars for Entertainment Weekly. And
right.
Of course, suddenly I'm rendered unable to pronounce his name. But he was on there and he was talking about interviewing Lucasfilm about the Solo movie and about, he wants to get the take on what happened and with the original directors being let go and everything else. And it's and it's and he talks about, sometimes the interviews are only available by message, and he doesn't like that because that means you don't know who's sending you the email. At the other end, he likes to know who's sending him the email because it could just be a PR person sitting there firing back responses, kind of thing. And you never even think about that when you're consuming the news. Really,
no,
you don't think of was this interview done by email? That kind of thing, like that, you could imagine. There's all kinds of things that could happen. If that's how
Some
you're doing
publications
interviews.
identify that when that happens.
Right.
I've read that several times where they say
He said it in
so and so
email.
answered by email this, so they're kind of quantifying that. Hey, yes, this is coming from this source. So take that as you will. So anyway, it's a tough situation.
But I also think like back in the day, you could deflect easier. On TV.
Yeah, for sure. Nobody was aware of it.
No, like the answer, the old rule: answer the question you wish the interviewer asked you, not the actual question. And then it looks like you're just being helpful.
Yes,
it looks like you're just throwing out the info. What do you mean? What are you getting mad at? I'm answering the questions. Like that's what it looks like. So if the journalist gets angry, then you just look like you're the nice. I'm the nicest person ever, just answering these questions. Why are you so angry? You must be a depressed journalist. Like it's the easiest thing in the world. But you see it. You see the difference when you don't see a seasoned interviewer
for sure
doing that job. So that's probably, or you see them nervous.
Yeah.
I used to interview bands for the Red River College newspaper when I was a student. One of them was Moxie Fruvis, also known for. But I remember being so nervous, like meeting the bands and stuff that I wouldn't ask follow-up questions, and I would just be like, hi,
Mr. Gameshi.
Yeah, well, I was actually Mike Ford I interviewed, I'm happy to say.
Okay.
But I remember a couple times, one time I interviewed Jane Sibbery, and she was not an easy interview.
Okay.
Like where it was very much like, you cannot understand my music was kind of the vibe. You can't understand it. So what am I doing talking to you? There's a bit of that happening. And so you're kind of like, well, like what am I going to do? We're going to fight with a musician I like? I was like, nah.
Okay.
I'll just let her say what she wants to say. And same with Mike Ford. I remember the scandal at the time was at Red River College band stuck in the 90s because it was too political for the college radio station. If you can believe it. Like, the most ridiculous, lighthearted ditty ever composed.
Right.
To call it like, yeah, Bob Dylan's fine, but none of that Moxie Fruvis stuff that all the kids are listening to. So I remember I was interviewing him about that, and it was supposed to be my job to get him to respond to being banned at Red River College. And
you didn't ask those tough questions?
I did ask the tough questions, but then I remember the interview was over, and I was like, I really don't have anything to quote this guy. Like, he answered it masterfully.
Yeah.
Was it like to the extent that I had no direct kind of anything.
Okay.
And then in the end, I took a picture of the band holding a sign saying, "Thanks for your support, RRC."
That's awesome.
Go team.
Okay, final story in the news today. Netflix has released. It's always fun when we get any kind of information from Netflix because they don't typically release data. And when they do, it's pretty self-serving. And this is one of those things. So Netflix announced the top 10 shows binged first by the audience. So this is data collected over the last 5 years, and basically what they're saying is these are the shows that when someone first signs up for Netflix, these are the top 10 shows that they binge.
Can I try to guess?
Yes, absolutely.
Let me guess.
But first, I want to make sure we define binge. Binge means that they watch the one entire season of the show in a week. That's the definition of a binge. So
ready.
Let's go with what you think. Do you want to try guess in order, or what do you want to do?
No, I'll just throw it out there and cross out the ones that I say.
Okay.
Orange Is the New Black.
Yes.
House of Cards.
Yes.
Stranger Things.
Yes.
It's getting harder now. I'm trying to think. What's a big one on there? Those are all good.
It's done.
I know. Arrested Development.
Nope.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, think of it. There are
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad is on there. Half the shows are not Netflix shows. So
okay.
There's ones that are like about half of them are Netflix shows. You've already got
The Office.
3. No, The Office is not on there.
Is this Canada or U.S.?
This is U.S.
Okay, so some of them might not be the same.
Yes,
as I'm thinking here.
And yes, in fact, I can guarantee you, 3 of these are not on Canadian Netflix. So,
Fuller House.
Fuller House is on there. Yeah, number 7 on the list.
Okay.
I can't believe that. I watched one episode of that, and I could not believe how horrible it was.
There is, or was, they're not in business anymore. There was an app that said it could track who watches what on Netflix.
Yeah.
And that if Fuller House had Nielsen ratings, it would be the most watched show on television.
It's insane. I don't get it. So bad.
Okay. Let me see if there's any other guesses I've got here.
You got like 5, I think.
Kimmy Schmidt?
Nope.
No. Making a Murderer.
No.
Oh, I thought that was in there for sure.
No.
Got so much hype. I thought it had to be in there.
House of Cards.
All right, I don't. Okay, so throw me another one.
Like The Walking Dead is on there.
Oh,
right?
well, yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You said Stranger Things, House of Cards, Sons of Anarchy. That's one that we don't have.
We don't have it.
We don't. Sons of Anarchy and American Horror Story are both FX shows.
Yeah.
We don't get FX on our Netflix, so there's that. And the last two are Family Guy and Grey's Anatomy. Oh, so those are two pretty popular shows.
I probably would have come around to Grey's Anatomy after The Good Wife and after I tried that whole show.
Network TV. What do you think was the number one? Give me a guess.
We haven't.
I didn't reveal the number one. The number one show.
I haven't guessed it.
No. It's one of those ones you guessed. But which one of those do you think?
Did I say House of Cards?
You did say House of Cards.
I'm going to say House of Cards.
That is not number one.
Ooh.
No, it's Orange Is the New Black.
Oh, that would have been
my guess would have been Stranger Things, but that's just me because I like that show more than anything else. But
I saw, as I say, I think it was called Symphony Advanced Media. They were called, and they would always say that we can measure Netflix ratings based on we have users using the apps,
right.
And I think that was they said they estimated. I think it was Orange Is the New Black, Fuller House. I can't remember the other ones that they had on the list, but basically they said they listed them as the most popular shows on. Like if they would be measured by Nielsen, they would be among the most. No, popular.
And it's like I said, hopefully at one point we get some more solid information from Netflix. But there's no reason for them to do that. We still watch it. It doesn't matter to us. It kind of shows how useless ratings are really in the end of things. Really, like we don't care how many people watch something. We just want to watch something that's good.
Except advertisers care.
Well, they
and that's
do.
The problem.
But there is no advertising on Netflix. So
product placements.
Well, there's that too, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Well.
So product placement. Like if you bought a product placement on Orange Is the New Black, you would like to know how many people are watching. Right?
Okay. What product placements are on Orange Is the New Black?
Oh, the sneakers for sure.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah. There are some.
The only I can think of is the Eggo waffles from Stranger Things or Meow Mix from season 2.
Or how about for me, the one I always bring up in class is House of Cards, the shameless let's meet to talk at Dunkin' Donuts, like that one where it was like what. It was about as realistic as when the real world goes to hash things out at Subway. We're like, what?
The one that comes to mind for me is on the show Runaways, Marvel's The Runaways, which it's a Hulu show, but same idea because it was here in Canada, it was on a network, but in the States it's only on Hulu. They had a very strong sponsorship from Lyft because they're like, oh, do you need to ride there? It's like, no, I'm going to take a Lyft. Like that was every episode somebody said they were taking a Lyft, or you would see them get dropped off by a Lyft car with a logo. And I think in the world where we commonly we don't use Uber because we don't have it here yet, but where in those cities where Uber and those ride sharing services are available, Uber is the top brand in that category. So certainly for somebody to say Lyft would be unusual.
Yeah,
I think it might get to the point where people say Uber even when they do mean Lyft. You know what I mean, like Saran Wrap or whatever else. So all right, that's going to be it for the nerd news. We're going to talk about Patreon today because we've taken a new step in a different direction. So we'll have a brief conversation about Patreon when we come back on the Media Nerds podcast. So Kenton, when did you first hear about Patreon?
When some of the Star Wars podcasts started.
And how long ago was that?
Within the last year, I'd say.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I've been aware of it for a few years now. Blame Society Films, who we've interviewed on this show, and they're one of my favorite YouTube channels, actually what they started on was something called Subbable. This is probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And Subbable was a website very similar to Patreon, started by Hank and John Green, and the Vlog Brothers, who have a bunch of other stuff going on YouTube, and John Green is a best-selling author. And they started Subbable because they saw that there were a lot of channels not making enough money off the YouTube ad revenue, and they wanted to offer another form of income for them. And so they started the company. I signed up. I started paying for Blame Society Films. It was like $5 a month or $10 a month or something. I felt it was, I really like these guys. I want to support them, so I'm going to pay for their content. And then within a year of that happening, they sold out to Patreon, which I think was interesting. I don't know if they knew that was coming or what happened there. It was one of those deals where they started a company and sold it out to the competitor. But regardless, Patreon accomplishes the same thing, and that's all they really wanted, was to have a method by which fans of whatever media platform can pay those creators for their work. And so far, it's worked out pretty well, I think.
But it also turns one-way communication into two-way communication because, that's part of the idea. that the fan throws you something and you throw something back.
Right.
At
No,
the fan.
there are. It's structured very similarly to Kickstarter, in which you can get rewards and different things, and there's bonus content and exclusive content, and so the people who do subscribe to these podcasts and YouTubers and different things through Patreon, they get something in return for their money. Not just the podcast, which they would get for free anyway, or the video or the YouTube videos, but they get something else, be it access to the bonus content, or I know Vlogbrothers, they do a video, or they do another podcast. They have their podcast called Dear Hank and John, but they do another one that's just to Patreon patrons or whatever. So, and same with Blame Society Films. They have a great thing. So they've done a thing where they actually, that's how I got our first advertisement, our only advertisement really on Beer and Board Games, was I earned it through Patreon donations. And so when I got to a certain point, they said, okay, you can get a toast. And so I bought a toast for the Media Nerds podcast, and that's on the most inappropriate episode of Beer and Board Games ever. They're playing a game that I can't say the name of because it's a swear. But
I played that one.
It's a game all about swearing.
I didn't play the game. I watched that.
The video,
episode,
yes, it's all full of all kinds of inappropriate language. So. Anyway, I didn't get to choose
and you
what
got
episode.
The placement.
Yeah, I didn't get to choose that, but I did get to have our name on there, which is cool. So we've decided to start doing this as a podcast. We talked about a couple of weeks ago our kind of state of the podcast, where we wanted to go with this, where we wanted to take it, and so this is kind of our next step into the, I don't know what I want to call it, professional podcasting, but certainly a way to grow the podcast and to make it better is something we're doing here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. We're done. We're on.
So what are some of the what are the levels?
Here's what we get. And this is so tough to do because you're like, and I can absolutely see that every creator going through this struggle when they do something like this, because they're like, well, I'm already giving it away for free. Well, why would they pay me money? Why would they give me money for this? Right? Because again, most of it comes from the desire to give back to those people who are creating content.
Yeah.
And of course, the wider your audience, the more chances there are people who are going to do that. So I don't expect a ton of people to come forward and start giving us money, but it doesn't cost anything to do this. All they do is they take a share of it, just like Kickstarter does or any of the other sites. But I think it's a great way for media to get something in return for what they're doing. We do this podcast for fun. We do it because we enjoy doing it. And I mean, it'd be great to get to do this for a living. I think that in the end, the only podcasts that will truly be able to have people make a living are the ones who are really, really popular on a worldwide level, because you need a big base audience to get enough money from something like this. And even as Steele was saying last week on Star Wars Nerds, it can't just be this. It's got to be T-shirts and live shows and all the other stuff. So that's got to be part of it as well. And maybe we'll get into that stuff as well. You did print T-shirts at one point.
Those turned out nice. Yeah,
and buttons and stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, we have a goal, our first stretch goal. If we reach a $500 per month total donations, we will do a live show in which we actually go somewhere in front of an audience and do the Media News podcast. And maybe we'll bring Shaw TV with us to shoot it as well.
Excellent.
We'll see how that goes.
This sounds great. Sign me up. Okay. I'm ready.
You're ready to donate? You're going to pay yourself to do a podcast? I'm ready.
And for $5,000, I'll carry someone on my shoulders.
There you go. That's
around from class to class.
Okay, let's get to recommendations for this week. What do you guys have? What do you have to recommend?
You go first.
All right, I'm going to recommend a new YouTube channel that I found through a student's recommendation. So I have my students pitching their YouTube channels, and so one student pitched a unboxing video. He wants to do an unboxing video channel kind of thing. And I'm like, oh man, these are so boring. Like every time my kids watch these videos, I'm just like, I don't get what they're doing here. Because it's usually someone opening toys, right? Their kids, My kids like it because they like to see people opening toys. It's exciting. So I found one called, through the student recommendation, it's called Matthias, Mattias. Matthias, that's his name. And it's an unboxing video, but what he does is he orders weird stuff off Amazon, and it's freaking hilarious. A lot of it is from China, from overseas, where the translation is wrong on the description. A lot of it is really cheap. Some of it's really good, and everything's different. And every week he kind of brings a new collection of things to order, and he unboxes it and plays around with it and makes fun of it. And he's a really funny, outgoing person, and he's got his little helper there as well. So I've been kind of watching this guy for a couple of days now, and I've really been enjoying his videos. So
that's great.
Interesting in finding it. And I never thought I would like this kind of channel. I honestly didn't think I would like an unboxing channel on YouTube, but there's one. There we go. One that I like.
Unbelievable.
So, Matthias, you can find him on YouTube. Check out his stuff. He's really funny.
Excellent. You know what? I have been marking for the last 2 weeks. I've taken in nothing new.
Really?
Except Well, I shouldn't say that. I've taken in a lot of stuff that people would already be aware of. So what I was going to say is, and I mentioned to you, The Florida Project is a film that was not nominated for Best Picture, and maybe it's nominated. It's our actor is nominated, Willem Dafoe. Yeah. And it's sort of, as far as Oscar-nominated movies go, it's a little bit of the under-the-radar one. So I want to give that one, like, the true-to-life performances by kids in that movie. And sure enough, Willem Dafoe too, but he's already a name going in. But to me, the revelation of that film is the other actors in that film, particularly the children actors. It's unbelievable. And when it's all over, there's lots to think about. So I'm going to recommend that one. And sort of as even though I know it's been part of the big media crush of Oscars, but I think maybe, it's overlooked. I think you're right. I think maybe a little, well, the fact it's nominated for an Oscar means it hasn't been overlooked. But by definition. I guess. But it was overlooked for Best Picture. Maybe you think it should have been nominated for Best Picture? I think so. Ahead of some of the other ones that we have? Well, I don't know all of those either. Okay. Hey, so, but right now I'd say that is a really wonderful movie. So I really recommend it. And I heard an interview with Willem Dafoe this week on the Hollywood Reporters podcast, and it made me like the movie even more. Okay. So I'll recommend those two things. Excellent. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Media Nerds Podcast. Go to MediaNerdsPodcast.com for our full podcast, blog, and social media channels.